Peeps, fasten your seatbelts. This student engagement infomercial is long and it goes quickly. I apologize in advance for its length and thank you so much for watching. While you're watching, if you would just jot down some ideas that resonate with you or that have worked in your class, I would really appreciate it if you could do that. During our professional development, we really want to hear from you. Sharing's not mandatory, but we'd love to hear from you. All right, peeps, let's get rolling. Folks, students are more successful when they understand that school is not just about content, but it's about the development of their character, the development of their skills, the development of their emotional and cognitive strength. For example, when students summarize a paragraph on the Great Depression, it's not just about the historical event, but it's about reading, comprehending, writing, communicating. When students are in a small group for math, it's not just about the content, but it's about their ability to interact with others successfully. This is very important for engagement. Students can understand that school is not just about content, but it's about their own personal development, and good teachers can help them gain this understanding. This is especially true in 5th and 6th grade, which is the dawn of independence. When we talk about student engagement, I really love what Marzano and Pickering say in their book. It's a great book, The Highly Engaged Classroom. They really talk about mindset. They take all this research, but they summarize it in a very easy way to understand. From the student's perspective, how do I feel? Am I interested in this? Is this important? Can I do this? Am I capable? Is this accessible to me? From our point of view, from teachers' point of view, do I have their attention? Are they engaged? So we already know that students who are engaged, involved, and enthusiastic about school, they're more likely to be hopeful about their future. They're going to have better academic performance than their disengaged peers. We also know that engagement declines radically in 5th and 6th grade. So that is something as teachers that we have to be aware of. I want to talk a little bit about growth mindset, because growth mindset is intimately related to engagement. How students see themselves, how they see their environment, how they see their teachers, how they see their peers. How a student perceives things intimately affects how they behave and how they engage. And I want to kind of give a personal example of this, okay? I can say to myself, every single person in this room has something to teach me. Every single person in this room has strengths that I do not have. And this is a powerful mindset because it changes the way I see you, it changes the environment, and it changes our relationship for the better. So a lot of these ideas about student engagement are ideas we already know, but it does have value discussing them and going over them again. I want to start by talking a little bit about ROAR. I'm not going to go into detail about ROAR because I know the foundations team will probably address that, but a safe, consistent environment that helps students persevere. Without that, engagement is very difficult. And we can't really talk about engagement without talking about ROAR. So we have to understand that ROAR, respect, open-mindedness, attitude, and responsibility are so essential to engagement. Relationship building. We hear so much about relationship building. This is a never-ending task. We've got to find those little moments where we make eye contact with a student, fist bump them, point out their strengths. I have no problems telling a student that they have a nice haircut or a cool shirt, but that does not have close to the value of praising them after they have worked hard on an assignment. Like, for example, Mary, I don't think I've ever seen you so focused and work so hard. Your work today was truly awesome, really a great job. Find that struggling student, identify their strengths, and then point it out to them. That's relationship building. That's the real gold, when we can point that out. And when we do this, the students will see that, we want a culture where we're valuing the students' strengths, and students pick up on stuff like that. Folks, build a relationship with that parent if you can. You can't always do that. But if you can build a relationship with the parent, that has a huge impact on student engagement. Some of my difficult students, sometimes I'll invite the parents to come up and observe or even, participate if they're certified to help out. If you can build a relationship with a parent, that's solid gold, and it really helps with engagement. Also, you have those students that love the school-home barrier. They don't want their parents to know what goes on at school, and it's important to recognize those students and break down that school-home barrier. Consistency. You've got to have measurable rules in the classroom. Inform the students about the day. Put it up on the board so they know what they're doing. Create a routine. My students can earn free time every day if they do a number of tasks. But free time isn't really free time. Free time is a choice board of a bunch of activities that they love to do. Create a consistent environment where students have a routine and they know what to expect. Since the essence of growth mindset is a student kind of examining how they see themselves, how they see others, there's a few ideas that are essential for students to understand in order to begin this process. And it's a big transition from 4th to 5th grade because this is kind of new to students. So the first thing is awareness. Students have to become aware that they have awareness. And I walk around the room with a dry erase marker. I say, everybody look at the dry erase marker, and I have them look at the dry erase marker, and then I say, look, you gave your awareness. You paid attention to that dry erase marker. So get students aware that they have awareness and they're in control of where they put that awareness. Are they yapping with the student next to them, or are they giving their awareness to the teacher? The other thing is, we have to help students understand the power of thought. And the way I do this is I talk to students about magnetism. You can't see it, and I give them examples on the whiteboard. I stick something on the whiteboard and I show them an example of magnetism. Or gravity. I'll drop my keys. Why did my keys fall? Would they fall if they were up in the space station? So, they can't see gravity. They can't see magnetism. Well, you have thoughts. You can't see your thoughts, but they're powerful. So it's a really important idea that students begin to understand that their cognitions, they can't see them, can't touch them, but it is a force. It has power in their life, and it affects the trajectory of their life. Also, in 5th and 6th grade, students can begin to understand that non-material things have real value in life and that people value things differently. I may ask the class, what would they pay for an American Girl doll or a football? And I get very different answers. Then I may ask the class if their relationship with a loved one has value and what's it worth. Obviously, there's no price you can put on a loved one, and the relationship has great value. Now, this discussion about awareness, cognitions, and value, it helps students to begin to appreciate and find value in non-material things like relationships, teamwork, and character, all things that support student engagement and change behavior. Now, most important is that students begin to think about themselves differently and become more aware of their own cognitions. Now, obviously, you can't throw all these ideas at your students at one time, but you can take little pieces and do it slowly. And over the year, they'll begin to understand that how they think has an impact on the trajectory of their life. Invest some time in lesson planning. This pays huge dividends because if you lesson plan carefully, you can address differentiation. Students who are moving slow, students who are moving quickly. You can decide how you want to do your groupings. Also, when lesson planning, it's very important to limit your chunks of time, limit your whole group time, limit your small group time, limit your station time, limit your independent work time. So students have all these diverse activities within your class. You're not spending the whole class on whole group. You're not spending the whole class on independent work. If you break it up into smaller chunks like that, the students are able to engage better, and you can address issues of differentiation more easily. So take that time and invest some time in creative lesson planning. Related to this is credit for completion assignments. These are so valuable because you can have a credit for completion assignment and treat a student who is struggling very different than a student who is advanced. You can tell the student that's advanced, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. You can tell the student that's struggling, hey, I just need you to complete this. Credit for completion really helps students build their confidence. You can make them show their work. It allows for mistakes. It also allows for grade improvement. They can get 100 and bump up their grade. So keep in mind credit for completion assignments because they're excellent for addressing differentiation and they really help build confidence. I love worksheets. I may get in trouble for saying it. I know some people don't like worksheets, but worksheets are incredibly valuable. They help students develop perseverance because if they got 15 questions and they're struggling, they really learn how to develop endurance. It's excellent for repetition. Also, if the worksheet can give immediate feedback, if you can grade it easily, that is so valuable for engagement. Students love immediate feedback. And you can do worksheets on the computer too, using technology. Worksheets help students develop independent work skills. It's easy to diversify worksheets. And again, they're really excellent for building confidence. I think every teacher should have at least 10 content-based games that the students think are fun, and make sure you share it with other teachers. That's where I got most of my games. But every teacher in their arsenal all the time should have like 5 or 10 content-based games that the students really like to engage in. And you know, you can have different types of groups, different types of pairing, but content-based games are incredibly valuable for student engagement. Grouping is highly underutilized, and the thing I want to emphasize with grouping is be creative, make it your own. There are so many different types of group, and as a teacher, if you make it your own, if you do your groups the way you want to do it, you're going to use groups more. And there's all different kinds of groups. You know, there's homogeneous small groups, there's heterogeneous small groups, you know, high and low levels, all low level, all high level. You can have teacher and student, leader, helper, elbow pairs. There's so many different types of groups, but utilize grouping, experiment with groupings. Google, you know, what type of groups there are. You know, jigsaw groups are excellent for higher level learners. The key here is that you tailor these groups to fit your classroom and to fit your style. You may be the type of person, hey, I only like to do pairs and I want to do homogeneous pairs, meaning same level pairs. You have to pick it and make sure it works for you, but grouping is highly underutilized, and teachers often think, oh, there's only a few different types of groups. There are so many different ways to group students, and the more creative you are, the more likely you are to use groups and tailor it to what makes you happy. Check for understanding. You have to make sure the ideas that you're conveying are going into the student's brain. I use the wheel. Some people use popsicle sticks. There's a million ways to randomly pick students, but every teacher should have some way of randomly picking your student. The students should feel like, hey, I know my teacher could ask me at any minute, am I paying attention? And they're going to ask me to demonstrate that I have been paying attention. It should be random, unpredictable. I use the wheel. I'll give you access to the wheel. Like I said, some people use popsicle sticks, but every teacher should have some way of randomly asking students questions. So students want challenges, but students also want to be successful. So we have to know where our students are at, and we do this through assessments. In formative assessments, we should be doing those all the time. We have to find out, is my teaching effective? You know, what adjustments do I have to make? Summative assessments, the district has plenty. We have plenty, you know, ways of giving students grades. But formative assessments allow us to kind of assess ourselves. Is my learning working? And what adjustments do I have to make? Because if we know where our students are at, we can challenge them appropriately, and that brings us to the zone of proximal development, which is very important. We need to challenge students, but not too much. If it's too easy, students are going to get bored. If it's too difficult, students are going to give up. But if we challenge students and they can rise to the challenge and be successful, it really helps building confidence. That's why understanding where each student's zone of proximal development is. And this is very difficult for classroom teachers because you have so many students, but we still have to know where each student is so we can challenge them appropriately. Another thing that's difficult and scary in the classroom is the difference of levels. And I suggest that every single teacher share a personal story about when they struggled learning, because students develop a lot of confidence when they begin to embrace their own learning style. I tell students all the time, hey, when I was in college, I was always the last one to finish my math test. So I got good grades, but I took my time. So I encourage every teacher to kind of share a personal learning style that's different than other students, a personal struggle that they went through with learning, because we want students to embrace their own learning style. We want them to be aware, hey, I learn differently from others. I take my time, or I rush through. You know, I tell some of my students, you're driving a Ferrari and you're making mistakes. Help them become aware of what their learning style is, how they can improve it, how they can develop it. Let them know that whatever their learning style is, has value. I believe that every student at some point in the year should be able to demonstrate their mastery of something. Obviously, you're going to have your student experts. It's great to identify the student experts and have them teaching other students and sharing with the whole class. I also think that every student, whether it's through, using a random wheel or just when they master something, every student should have the opportunity to demonstrate and teach what they have learned. Teaching what they have learned is an excellent way to reinforce learning and inspire them to learn more. Another aspect of the highly engaged student is the teacher has helped them understand the value of teamwork, that the human species is a collaborative species, whether we're building bridges, doing medical research, whatever it is. Our great successes as a species have been done through teamwork. And the highly engaged student understands that the classroom is a team. The teamwork is part of being human. And wherever they go, they understand, hey, I'm on a team. Whether I like this person or not, we're going to do things as a team. And they know how to interact with students they like, with students they don't like. That is the highly engaged learner. And that's very difficult for middle school students because they only want to work with people they like. If as a teacher you can help students that maybe don't like each other work together and do something as a team, whether they're a paired group or a small group, that is a huge success and will help them navigate other situations in a very healthy way. This next bullet point is an outstanding way for a teacher to build a relationship with a student and help deepen a student's understanding of school. And so many teachers miss this opportunity. For example, let's say I'm a math teacher and I'm teaching the order of operations. And a student says to me, you know what, I'm never going to need this in my life. So many times I hear teachers trying to explain that away by creating situations where they might need it. And it's just not true. If a student says to me, you know what, I'm never going to need this information, I don't push back on that. I'm like, you know what, you're right. You might be an artist, you might be a chef, who knows? But let's look at what you're doing here. Let's look at what you're doing when you're learning the order of operations. You're studying a process. You're looking at a problem with a bunch of different operations and trying to figure out what to do. An athlete never uses push-ups or pull-ups in the game, but they develop his body. In the same way, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to need to use the order of operations sometime in your life, because you might not. But if you learn how to do this process, if you learn how to successfully work on these worksheets and figure out these problems, it's going to develop and strengthen your mind. So when students say, you know what, I'm never going to need this, answer that honestly, but then really dive in to the process of what they're doing. Because almost always the process of what they're doing is more valuable than the actual content they're doing for strengthening their cognitive abilities. When a teacher does this, it strengthens the relationship between the student and teacher because the teacher's answering it honestly. You might never need this. I don't know. You could be an artist, a baker, a musician. Who knows? I'm not going to tell you you might need it. And again, you're helping them understand the value of the process, that it's not the content, that it's about their personal development, their cognitive development, developing resilience, perseverance, all those other qualities that have nothing to do with content. Expectations on the intermediate level are vastly different than elementary school, and it's very important for teachers to help students with this transition. In elementary school, student behavior is managed by the teachers. On the intermediate level, students must know that we are not going to manage their behavior. We must communicate clearly to students that it is our expectation that they manage their own behavior, and if we have to manage their behavior for some reason, they need to know that they are not exhibiting grade level behavior. Communicating this idea to all students not only fosters independence, but also higher levels of engagement. I'd like to begin this conclusion by reading a quote from Understanding Neuroplasticity, Implications for Curriculum and Instruction. And it says, awareness and reframing are powerful tools for harnessing neuroplasticity. By being aware of their thought patterns and behaviors, individuals can consciously work to change them. If we can help students become more aware of their own cognitions and also understand that they can choose how to frame a particular situation, that they can choose how to see people, that they can choose their cognitions. We can transform their lives. And it's essential to a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is essential to student engagement. Let's offer our students new ideas. Share with them that school is an environment to build life skills, develop their character, develop empathy, learn how to successfully navigate different social situations, learn teamwork, build resilience. Put these ideas in your students' mind and help them understand that they have the ability to deal with the challenges of being an adolescent, that they can do this successfully. Help students understand that life's a marathon, it's not a sprint, that learning a skill is a long process filled with victories and frustrations. I tell all my students, hey, look, if I give you apple seeds on Friday, you're not going to have an apple tree on Monday. I tell them, look, if you want to learn the piano, there's going to be a lot of frustration. It's going to take you years to really get proficient at it. It's really important that we help our students understand that long-term goals that have value, take perseverance. And this can be something as simple as working on a worksheet or a big life goal like playing the piano. As teachers, we understand that the classroom can be a scary place. The students are afraid that their weaknesses will be on display. One student can barely read, another can barely write, and still another is having unimaginable personal difficulties that she doesn't want anybody to know about. There are so many things that can make the classroom a scary place. The question we ask is, can we create an environment where it is safe to make simple mistakes, learn from them, and grow? Together, we can create a community where seedlings are protected, confidence is nurtured, and the expectations are exceeded. One of our greatest challenges is having the ability to see value in each student. This is especially true with our challenging students. We have to be that heat-seeking missile that really points out when they're being successful, when they're getting it right, when they're showing their strengths. If we can genuinely see the value in our students and communicate when we see growth, we know from studies that when we focus on strengths and we point out strengths, it improves mental health, it increases life satisfaction. We as teachers can do that, and sometimes that can be challenging. When students consistently see teachers emphasizing these non-curriculum ideas, students will begin to understand that all of us are building a community that embody these ideas. And then the students themselves are going to want to demonstrate these ideas that we're talking about and reinforcing. And this is when they begin to understand and experience that school is really about their own personal growth and that they're part of a team that is allowing them to develop in a healthy way. Just imagine if every student at Wilkerson felt that they had value when they step onto our campus. Imagine if every student, when they step into your classroom, feels that they're a valuable part of that community. Student engagement is so many different things, but the thread that connects all these pearls together is an engaged teacher. On a deep level, engagement is a genuine commitment of the self to the learning process. It's not just showing up, it's an emotional connection to the campus community and a sincere cognitive effort when facing a challenge. It's about curiosity and passion for life. It's going beyond what is required, and its destination is a life full of victories and adventure.